Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 256. Now, if you have been tuning in for the last 3 weeks because you really love feet and you wanted to listen to the podiatrist speak, we have him here with us today. A couple of episodes I've been mentioning Jack, who we have with us today. I'll introduce you to him in a minute. But yeah, it's really great. We finally managed to get Jack Kirby on with us today, and we're going to be talking about podiatry. I suppose really what is podiatry, what is a podiatrist, what kind of things they work on, and why feet are so important to all of us. And I think probably just about everyone who's listening will have feet, or at least one foot. We have had a number of guests on who don't have feet though, Pete, haven't we? I was thinking about this earlier. I didn't
It's funny actually when you said that. I'm like, oh, James, where are you? But like, yeah, we have had people on who've only got 1 foot. So yeah,
Bria, no legs, no limits. No
legs, no
feet. And Matt McLaren, Tartan Warrior, 1 foot. But yeah, most people, I would guess, most people listening have 2 feet.
Yeah. I've got 2 left feet at least.
Yeah, definitely for dancing.
Okay, so I'll just touch base with Mr. Peter Lant down in Bath. How are you doing, Pete?
I'm all right. I was it's funny when I'm out with the walking group and stuff like that. We'll talk about a lot of stuff, and I always link something back to an episode of some comedy or other. And this one, Faulty Towers, the psychiatrist episode, when he asks the wife what she does. There's a psychiatrist, and he goes, and what do you do? She goes, pediatrician. He goes, feet. She goes, no, children. And he goes, oh, well.
Well, there's the Alan Partridge one, isn't there? I stand corrected, said the man with orthopedic shoe. Yeah. So anyway, we got podiatry puns going already. Hey. Okay. So we are joined by Jack Kirby from Essex Podiatry Clinics. How are you doing, Jack? You okay?
Good. Thank you guys for having me on. Sorry, I know that last kind of few episodes I haven't been able to make it. Just lots of things going on in the practice and had to cover, etc. So thanks for having me on today.
No, it's great. It's great to have you on. And like we mentioned 2 episodes ago. Oh, and if you are listening on the day of release, sorry, it's the 18th of July, because I said I was going to. Is it? No, it's later than that, I think. Sorry, no, it is the 18th of July. It's the 18th of July. Yeah, this is when we're going out now, which is great. Yes, Jack, so you know Dave Adkins, who we had on a couple of episodes ago, and we did talk about plantar fasciitis on that episode. And then he said, well, when you speak to Jack, you'll be able to go into that kind of more. But I suppose to begin with, I mean, most people will have heard of podiatry or a podiatrist and know that it's something to do with feet, but do you want to kind of maybe tell us a little bit about your background, how you got involved in this? Is it something that from a very early age you knew that you wanted to be a podiatrist, or is it something that you moved into as you went through kind of education and stuff? And then also, what is a podiatrist? What do you spend most of your time doing? I know there's a few questions there, but start kind of wherever you'd like to, really.
Well, I guess starting from the very first point, it wasn't a burning ambition at 12, 13, 14 to become a podiatrist. I think that'd be slightly odd. I hadn't even heard of podiatry till I was kind of 17, 18. But yeah, I obviously just went through school, had an interest in science and sport, etc. Did my A-levels, kind of was looking down the osteopathy route. The government then changed the student kind of fees to about £9,000 per annum. So osteopathy was 5 years. It was £45,000 tuition fee debt. So I kind of was like, whoa, I was a pot wash at the time and I earned about £300 a month. So that seemed rather intimidating. But at the time, the NHS was sponsoring podiatry courses, which meant that all the tuition fees were paid for. It was a 3-year course. So it just meant that the risk was a lot less if I didn't enjoy working in healthcare practices. So I went to University of Brighton 2012. Very luckily, got landed in a house with Dave. He might say different about me, but um, yeah, we formed a great bond. Dave was doing physio. I went on obviously to do podiatry.
So do you also know Aidan O'Flaherty?
Yeah,
Who
no,
we had on
Aidan.
we had Aidan on the podcast as well, who's the running
Yeah, yeah,
running coach or something like that, isn't he? Yeah. So did you
yeah. So
share a
we were.
house? Did you all share a house together?
No, we didn't. But so me and Dave did. Andy, sorry, Aidan lived with another Irish lad called Andy. But them being physios, they were kind of always around the house. Sharing the odd bit of lecturing, sharing the odd beer. So yeah, we became very good mates. So
Excellent, excellent. Yeah. So
sorry, so yeah, and so kind of did the course. For anyone who doesn't kind of know what podiatry is, and completely don't expect anyone to, but it's the UK kind of term for it is chiropody. They internationally changed the term because podiatry is recognised worldwide as the term, so we changed the name over to podiatrists, not paediatricians. That's totally different things. But everyone says, "Are you a pediatrician?" And I'm like, "Not, no, podiatrist, but you're close." So yeah, and then we studied for 3 years at university, and yeah, it gave me the qualifications in podiatry, which allow me to treat a wide range of foot and ankle conditions, etc. So yeah,
excellent. So yeah, because well, like I say, we've done over 250 episodes now. You're the first person, um, first podiatrist, first person who deals with this kind of thing that we spoke to actually, which is great in nearly five years. So,
uh,
and as I mentioned, kind of like just about everyone has got 2 feet, and that is our kind of it's our connection with the world, I suppose, isn't it? Because
yeah,
again, just about most people walk. I know, not 100% of people, but just about everybody walks as well, or most people walk. So that's our connection with the ground and our kind of interface with the surface. And it kind of so what's important, you know, what's important about feet, that most people just take,
yeah,
like everything, most people take things for granted until something goes wrong, like their
yeah,
general health as well. And then when something goes wrong, they then start to think more about it. And I'd imagine that we start walking when we're kind of around, probably somewhere between 1 and 2 years of age. And probably the majority of people don't give it any thought whatsoever because it's just something they do naturally from when they're just a baby and a toddler. Um,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah, so
you're well, like dentistry, which is kind of like a similar branch of medicine, I guess, in obviously different areas of the body. But dentistry, you go for checkups, etc. But actually, in podiatry, it's more treatments, and we're kind of trying to get on the pushing the prevention side of things. Um, and we see a range of different complex. We could be simple, straightforward toenail cutting, or you might have your amputee who's looking for some gait analysis. So it's actually, although feet are the kind of uh, a small aspect of the body that we specialize in, but there is a wide range of complexes that go around a foot.
mm,
And what we see, lots of varying different opinions, and we had a brief chat just before about barefoot and shoes, etc. And we focus about the individual and getting the right things for them, etc.
yeah. So what would you say? So like you say, you don't really see someone generally unless a problem kind of presents itself. And then they come to see you. But like you say, dentistry, most people will go for like a 6 monthly checkup or something like that.
Yeah,
And just to kind of have a what do they call it? Like a not a service, you know, something
yeah, yeah,
whatever
yeah.
they call it, I can't remember the full
Checkup,
term.
I
A
guess.
checkup, yeah, and then and you'll see a hygienist or whatever. But with feet, unless someone has a specific problem, although I presume that issues obviously that happen with the feet
Mhm.
can obviously then create potential problems further up the chain with like
Yeah,
calf and the knee and then even into
yeah,
the hip and the back and everything. So you mentioned, I think it was just before we started recording, like gait analysis. So that's part of what you do, is it as
yeah,
well? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
That is right. I mean, if we take it just from the very start, if a patient comes in to see us, then we do a foot health check straight away. We use ultrasound Dopplers to record pulses. So we're looking for the elasticity, or we call it the peripheral perfusion of the blood flow. We're looking for elasticity. So first of all, we check and grade the wrist status of that foot. So if the blood flow is reduced going into the foot, we may know that we need to look at the medications they're on. We might find irregularities in the heart, and we can send modifiable factors back to the GP and letters, etc. And then we also check the neurological status of the foot, so the sensations, the proprioceptions, etc., etc. These just give us a really good kind of understanding of a patient's foot health and their risk for any problem going forward. And we started, I guess the focus initially was doing that with our high risk patients. So they tend to be the ones with rheumatoid arthritis or diabetes, etc. But actually, since we've been kind of checking everyone and really making sure that we focus on annual assessments, checking, we found people with, healthy people with slight irregularities in heartbeat. So we've been able to identify quite quickly, pop that back to the GP, little change of medication, and that patient's back, absolutely fine. So before we even start any treatment, these are the aspects I guess people don't realize we do. So, and then moving forward, so if we see like a patient, we get corns, callus, ingrown toenails, verrucas. They kind of tend to be our like routine, our bread and butter kind of aspects of treatment. Then we get onto, say, we get diabetic wounds, etc. These all kind of link, they all go through all the areas in podiatry. So you might have someone with a diabetic ulcer underneath the big toe joint, for example. Now, that patient will need to have factored into their blood flow checks, sensations, footwear observations, and then we even incorporate the gait analysis. So we're looking at kind of the high pressure areas, why that foot is overusing this area, causing high force, tissue stress, and how we can stop that ulcer coming back for that patient. But then obviously we get gait analysis patients who, you get runners, typically before London Marathon, we get a few patients coming in the door, pulled up with an Achilles problem or pulled up with a hamstring problems, etc. And we use a piece of technology which I bring to the gym, which is called FootScan. FootScan's been out for absolutely years, but this particular board that we use is the only one that's approved by, I'm pretty sure, approved by our Royal College of Podiatry. So this board allows us to do 3 examinations. One, we use a static examination, which is standing. And when we're weight bearing, we're standing maybe 75% of the time in a day. So it's important to have a look at posture when we're standing. We look at balance, and we track in the dynamic center of pressure. So when you're standing still, how much you're swaying, the direction of that swaying. And then finally, we go into detail into the dynamic data. In the dynamic data, we get you to walk across the board, maybe 15 to 20 times, capturing a large amount of footsteps. We then create an average of that footsteps, and then we link the gait analysis to perhaps your pathology or what's going on.
And would you get people to do this with their shoes off? They'd be barefoot when they did
shoes,
this?
Yeah, we do. So we use shoes off. So first and foremost, we want to see how the foot's moving kind of without any support, etc., before we intervene. Then if we do make some corrections, then we can check using the FootScan board, again, using footwear to make sure that our corrections are offloading forces, etc. And we use technical data. And the reason why I like to use technical data is, i.e. the foot might move 700 milliseconds in a complete footstep. So it's really hard to capture what is completely going on. Technical data allows us to slow down the movement of the foot, look at it in different stages. We also then get a complete measurement. So we measure it in Newton square centimeter of force, and that allows us to quantify the pressure. And then we can measure it. And I think if you can measure something, you can improve it as such.
This is interesting, because I did this like years ago in a running shop. They had one downstairs, and you go running across the thing, and then they go, all right, you need to buy this really expensive shoe over here, right? Because you're overpronating or whatever, right? All of these terms that some of them are kind of understand and other ones I don't. But what happens over time? So if someone has got a slight problem in their gait, how does that compound over time? Like over 10 years, if that doesn't get looked at, like James alluded to earlier, it kind of moves up the chain, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're looking at 20 footsteps, and it gives us up a risk assessment of what we think that, some people move 10, 15,000 steps a day. They might be on unstable terrain. They might be wearing flip-flops for 10 to 15,000. So you've got to link it all back in. I think a lot of like the majority of stuff we see is footwear based, um, increasing weight, etc. To in the way that you just first described it there, lots of people get told, oh, you need to have a really expensive pair of trainers that will solve all your problems. And actually, no, there's a far more kind of holistic approach to that view other than shoes. So, but typically now, like where we've set up, so we've created a center. It's called our bio lab, which is where we just look at the musculoskeletal complaints. We get so much of like flat feet, tightness in the posterior chains of the body. Lots of people are quite sedentary nowadays. And so when they go, they make a life choice where, oh, I need to get back a bit fitter. And then typically they've made that choice, go back to playing sport. 6 weeks later, something's happened.
Yeah.
And then we pick it up as such from there.
It's interesting because we had a lady, Dr. Nancy Allen, on a few weeks back. She's coming back on again in a few weeks, I think. And she's an NHS GP for the last 25 years, I think, nearly. And she sort of was saying that the NHS is very good at giving out, it's operations and medications, but they're not very good at prevention. And you mentioned prevention earlier in terms of most people go to see you when they've got a problem. But she kind of said that, and like you just alluded to there, if someone's got a problem with their feet, or whatever element it might be, it's possible, if people are sedentary, if people are particularly overweight, if people, are wearing the wrong type of shoes, or if people are doing activity in a way that's kind of, there's often, because I'd imagine for the majority of people, if we lived as we are naturally designed to live, and the human body moves naturally as it's designed to move, which is, we're so far away from that now that we can't ever turn back the clock and put the genie back in the bottle. But I'd imagine a lot of these kind of, just like in medicine, a lot of the illnesses that people have now are kind of lifestyle related. I'd imagine a lot of the complaints people have with their feet might be lifestyle related, or is this kind of like something maybe people are born with, their feet are a certain way? I mean, what's your...
Yeah, you get the congenital like conditions. We see some factors. You might be born with what we call clubfoot, etc., and that's a manageable condition. I mean, I love the everyday person and treating the everyday person, and I guess my job is to keep everyone moving. And a bit like Dave and the approach, we say a similar kind of. I think you have to tap into a person's like psyche. And when I was at uni and I was kind of going through all like the health belief models, etc., about how we can motivate patients, I was a bit like, well, I'm going to give you this, that we're going to fix it. But actually, you need to kind of work out why they've come in to see you, what you can do for them in the future, and how we can keep you going for longer. Because that's my job, is that I want to keep you walking, moving for as long as I can, pain free. And some of these factors, lots of people will admit when they come in the high BMI, and roughly, like every pound you put on, you're going to feel maybe 3-4 times going through the foot. So conversely, that pressure then changes the way that the foot moves, etc. Now, lots of, in my belief in kind of factors, is that insoles, etc., are like really overprescribed, and we don't activate a lot of the intrinsic foot muscles that are in our feet. And we're seeing a lot of that really because of, footwear's making the foot not work as well, concrete, etc., flat floors. These have all made the feet weaker over time. And so a lot of what I do is trying to increase the intrinsic foot muscles, sorry. We do touch upon people's weight. I'm not, sometimes when I have to consider myself putting on a few pounds, think, God, right, okay, let's go above the line again, focus back on your diet, etc. And we all do the same, and it's just identifying these risks. But the intrinsic foot factor, we have muscles in our feet that just people can't engage. And when I say to people like, can you pick up a towel with your feet and your toes, grip it on, they can't even grip and lift it up. The strength's gone in that muscle, and we're looking across the three arches of the feet. We do have three arches. Lots of people think we just have the one arch. We actually have medial, lateral, and transverse. So all three need to be considered. And when we look at the foot as let's say human engineering, it's a wonderful piece of, we're kind of really the only mammal that can last on 2 feet forever. Kangaroos, monkeys, they can get up onto 2 feet, but eventually their feet, they can't support them. So looking after these kind of sets of arches in the feet really can just give a really good baseline to improving your foot pain and health.
That's really interesting, because just like Nancy said, that there's an over reliance on giving medication. As soon as you go see a doctor, it's like, well, you've got this, take this, you've got this, take that. And the way you said there, it kind of made me think that with the way you said that there's maybe an over prescription of like maybe orthotics and stuff like that, without looking at kind of the more holistic kind of reasons for something. Sorry, Pete, were you going to ask a question there as well? I didn't want to jump in.
It was just something, I'm fascinated by that, about weak feet. Because I'll say most people, I'm going to generalize because I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to podiatry, and you obviously do, but I think like a lot of people think they've got flat feet, so they need orthotics and all of that, and it's not. It's a lifestyle thing, as far as I know. I don't know what the percentage is of people who've actually got flat feet, but I think more people seem to have it these days than they used to, I would say, because of footwear. Because you can now go to a shop and say, I've got flat feet, and they'll go, oh, these are I overpronate, I underpronate, I do whatever. These are the shoes you need to combat that. Not what you need to do is strengthen your feet and do this. It's like, no, here's the shoes that'll get rid of that. And then it's like, yeah, but then that surely that just passes the problem forwards as well.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we see lots of people that, oh, I've got flat feet, etc., and I bought this online, it's not helping, etc. You look at them, the one thing I always say, feet come in pairs, but they're never the same. Yeah. So there's always kind of differences in that foot. So when you're doing something, symmetrical both sides footwear, that one foot might tolerate it, it might not. But actually, if we start with the basis of strengthening your feet, and then insoles, insoles are there to support the weakened skeletal structures. Now, if we can get the muscles to activate it, and even sometimes it might not change joint alignment, but the way that the foot can move over the body is much more supported because muscles are stronger. You don't have to keep coming to buy an insole. Insoles typically, can last 6 months to 5 years, depending on the quality of the shell. You've got to keep coming back each week. And actually, if I set you the tools, that these just once a day, and do you know what? Most of the exercises you can almost do sitting on the sofa and just watching TV, grabbing things, moving aspects. And another really kind of way that like people can't activate their feet, I say to them, like, keep the big toe down and wave the other 4 toes. And I can tell you 95% of people really struggle to do that to start with. And they're just simple muscle activations within the foot that really help stabilize you going through the gait cycle. But yeah, I guess it's the quick fix. And just going back to that health belief model, like, you have to tap into that patient, because they come and see you, they give up their time, they give up their money to come and see you. Now, I'm saying to you, you've got like a long-term approach, 6 months. The quick fix just to kind of help stabilize you as an insole. But let's just try maybe the exercise program, and we like to progress it. I would say some of the fault when I first started was we used to hand a sheet of paper over to them and do 30 seconds and do this for 8 weeks and let's see you go. I like to really progress. So see where you start with. Let's start with that. And then in 3 weeks' time, I'm going to set you a different set of exercises and we'll keep moving up, 12-week plan. And then the beauty of having the foot scan board is I can reanalyze go back and compare the forces that you were having through your feet at that time, and compare how well that exercise plan has helped your feet.
Mm.
But it's the adherence to exercise. You know,
Mm.
some
Mm.
people
Yeah.
live busy lifestyles; they might not believe in the exercises, or etc. etc. So,
Yeah. So would you, I mean, is there something you mentioned prevention? I mean, if is there something that you can say that is going to be good for, I know you can't prescribe specifically for individuals, but if you said, you know, you take the majority of the population and for them, and we give, you know, blanket kind of advice in terms of maybe, you know, try and get 8 hours sleep, try and drink more water, try and walk a certain number of steps a day, which we'll maybe touch on with you. You know, maybe try and strength train 2 to 3 times a week. Is there kind of like a kind of a good rule of thumb, that some kind of advice that you could give like most of the listeners that would
yeah,
actually help their feet and their foot health, or at least help it from deteriorating, or keep them healthier for longer, if you know what I mean?
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, like, probably I would say 80%, if we're looking at kind of generic data, 80% of people have got a tight posterior chain. Now that really comes from the sedentary lifestyle, sitting
So yeah,
on, working from
just explain to us, just for the listeners, Jack, what you mean by that, a tight
tight,
posture chain.
tight posterior chain. So we're looking at kind of ease, quality, range of motion, really starting from like, and the posterior chain, we're looking at kind of glutes, hamstrings, Achilles, range of motion, even looking into what we call the first metatarsophalangeal joint, which is essentially a big toe joint. Now, all of these are connected in your locomotion. So if you're really restricted, now I'm looking at you doing 10, 15 steps. And as I went back, you know, some people do 10,000 steps. If you are restricted from hip to your big toe joint, you know, you are going to have a problem. And 85% of people, we get up and I say, can you show me a lunge? Can you touch your toes? They are just completely jammed up.
Mm.
Um, and actually, as soon as, or sometimes I even like, so there has to be a certain range of motion in our big toe to kind of allow propulsion to happen, to allow your heel to lift up on the ground. Now, if that's jammed up, your Achilles is going to be working extra hard, your hamstrings are going to be working extra hard. Now, this is your big toe joint, you know,
Mm.
so even starting from this small fulcrum at the end of your foot, which at some point the whole body's weight almost pivots off. um, you know, they're very simple things really to start with. But I would say generic kind of stuff, always work on the posterior chain. We're so focused on the anterior stuff, you know, lots of running. Sports are driven by quad activation, and actually we forget about what the glutes, the hamstrings, the calves do for us, and the importance of it. So stretching out calves, I would say, is my number one, probably generic kind of advice.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So most people have got like tight calves, which leads then to like I say, Achilles problems and
Yeah,
hamstrings and everything. Yeah. So this
yeah,
is
because the
really good.
calf the calf is essentially, it inserts, and this is the strongest tendon in the body, the Achilles tendon. Now it inserts into the calcaneus, or a heel bone, and so does the plantar fascia, and they work, and we call it the windlass mechanism in the feet. I don't know, for some of you sailors who might be listening or whatever, the windlass mechanism is almost like a catapult effect of how we move the body forward. And if your Achilles tendon is tight, you're going to pull that heel bone further back. We get a lot of patients then with plantar fasciitis, or just generally poor propulsion in the body. And, you know, there's always going to be a compensation factor for all of that.
Mm. It's really interesting because when we had Dave on a couple of weeks back, I mentioned I was starting to get the beginning. I've never had plantar fasciitis in my life, but it typical. I was going away for a weekend to meet Pete down in Bath, and it's a
Is this your
walking.
walking trip?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
walking
yeah,
weekend.
yeah.
Yeah.
Heard a lot
So,
about that last
so I
night.
was going to do like five. I was going to do 5 miles on the Friday walking and 10 miles on the Saturday, and it's kind of cross country and it's up hills and all the rest of it. And it was typical. I started to get this really bad heel pain in the morning when I used to when I was waking up, and it would generally go after 10, 15, 20 minutes of me being up and moving around. And I have to say, I did this walking weekend, and it might be because we were walking up hills, but it's totally gone. I've got no issue, no
Yeah,
problem with my heels at all.
Walking souls.
Walking souls, yeah.
Sold by walking.
And what I was thinking was, but what I did, I was really aware on Monday, we came Sunday, Monday, after we did this walkings, we had quite a lot of kind of hill stuff, that my hamstrings were quite tight or fatigued from walking uphill. But I think because obviously when you walk uphill, your heel is below the line of the front foot. I must have been stretching my foot as I was walking, because that hill pain has just gone. I've got none.
It's exactly that. You know, you've got plantar fascia. So often people go on my heel. It's cause and effect, you know. So that calf might be just jamming up slightly, and it being the strongest tendon in the body, it has such a greater force than the plantar fascia. So the cause is the Achilles tendon, and it pulls, like I say, the calcaneus back, which splits and starts tearing the plantar fascia. But yeah, exactly that. How much time do we all spend walking up a hill? You know,
this is fascinating, because I remember things, right? And last year, James went on a walking holiday in Norfolk, which is flat, and you said your Achilles were really tight after that, and you walk in similar distances, but on the flat. And I find this, if I walk along, I don't do it anymore, but if I used to, if I walk along a canal towpath, I hate it, because it's the same step every bloody time.
That's right.
And I think in my head, I know the answer to this, and it's good for you, but how good is it to be doing like a different step each time, like walking up a hill, across stones, gravel, and things like that?
I think it's good. You're activating lots of the muscles to stabilize the feet. You know, if you just constantly walk on concrete and then you start going, you know, you take your dog, for example, the everyday person, they start walking over paths, and all of a sudden they realize that ankle's a bit unstable with lateral or medial movements, because walking just straight forward, you're really just dorsiflexing the foot up and plantar flexion, but the foot can move in many different ways, which makes it unique. So yeah, the importance of it is, you know, we've got to move it in different ways. The other factor is, let's say you're a runner and you run the same route on the road, and we all know that the road has a slightly kind of
a camber,
yeah, you know, so if you're running the same route the same way round each time on the road, one hip is going to be lower on the right, you know, and you keep doing that, and eventually you're going to end up in hip pain. And actually your gait's pretty good, but what we can see is, like, the way you're running, you need to change the way or the route or the position you run.
I noticed this years ago when I'm walking across a hill, but not up or down it, across it. I prefer facing one way than the other, and I can't remember which way. That's changed over the years. It used to be very pronounced, and now I do a lot of it, so it's changed over the years. But I used to hit it, and I can't remember which way it was.
Because you know, Pete, that on the Friday when we walked, you know, we took that photo on that big bale of hay.
Yeah.
And then we walked on that field, didn't we?
That was
hill, but it was at an angle like that. So it was kind of walking uphill, but on a slope. And that was sloping right to left. It's so actually then, Jack, probably, like we said, if people are moving a lot and they're walking a lot, not necessarily running, but if they're walking a lot, I mean, do you recommend, I mean, I presume obviously as well, if people have got an issue, then you don't necessarily want them walking lots on it. But if you don't have any, you know, like you said, prevention is better than cure. Do you recommend like walking is a good thing for most people?
100%. And even if I reflect on myself, and having, like, being a podiatrist and having your own business and stuff, time is condensed, you know. And when I think sometimes my weight moves, and, you know, if my weight gets bigger and you know, then you start feeling a bit more stressed out. Actually, going for a half-hour walk at lunch doesn't require me, you know,
changing clothes or anything.
Yeah, exactly. It goes out, and then I'm in a different headspace. You know, half-hour walk, 45 minutes walk, I might have burnt 150 calories, etc. You know, there's a lot of that is involved in it, but generally walking is a great start. We're designed to walk. We have 2 feet. We're so reliant on cars, etc. And it's easily just, you know, if it's a 10-minute walk to the shops to get something, but most people will take the car out, you know, because it's 1 minute. But if we walk that, I can guarantee you'll be feeling better than when you drove.
Got an interesting question. This is a selfish question, because the funny thing is, you could go online and argue about this for years, about barefoot shoes and non-barefoot shoes, and shoes are too narrow, and wide toe boxes, and all of this sort of stuff. Walking boots, right? I wear like we said earlier, pretty much exclusively Vivos, right? Because my feet don't fit in anything else anymore. And they'll fit in other barefoot shoes, but like I like Vivos because they last me about 2 years. I can wear them until they fall apart, basically. But I've got the Vivo boots as well, and they don't really support your ankle that much. But I've had boots in the past that are like rigid.
Yeah.
But then when you're walking up and down steps, say, you can't actually flex your ankle. And then I do a lot of strength training, and I do a lot of one-legged stuff and what have you. And I was on a walk the other week with Sean, my girlfriend. And a couple of times I went over on my ankle, which in the past, years ago, that would have been a sprained ankle for us. But actually, I went over, it was like, oh, that's uncomfortable. Sean said she saw one of them and my foot kind of just like went.
Really, but yeah.
But then I was like, oh, and I felt a bit of a tweak. But then a couple of steps later, it was gone. Because I think I've strengthened my ankles by not wearing boots. And then when it's dry, I'll wear like trail running shoes. I don't go trail running, but I'll wear trail running Vivo shoes with the lugs on for grip. But I'll wear them to go walking. But if you go online, people who say if you're in the lakes, walking up some of the hills and stuff like that, you need to wear solid boots because of, well, they say slipping, but if you've got a good sole, that's okay. But like, you could argue about this forever. So what's your kind of thing on that between strengthening your feet and your ankles and stuff like that and wearing supportive, not say supportive stuff for your foot, we're going different to orthotics here and actually having strong ankles. What's your opinion on that?
Totally, I am in the camp of strengthening. So first and foremost, so probably through the history, maybe you had some weak lateral ligaments around the ankle and developing.
I sprained an ankle when I was in school, like when I was about 12 or 13 or something.
Yeah, and the amount of people that go on to have like repeated ankle sprains after you've had one is really high because they don't strengthen, etc. I guess the kind of way I would always see it is if you've got good range of motion, etc., then barefoot shoes are great. Activate the intrinsic muscles as much as you can. If you've got poor range of motion, now I use the best way I could call it is we call it sagittal plane facilitation, which basically means that the foot has 3 rockers on it. So imagine the foot almost acts like a rocking horse, okay, like a banana type. So just allows it, and that allows hip extension. Now, if you haven't got range of motion in your ankle or your big toe joint, etc., barefoot shoes are going to increase. We want the shoe to take the demand of what the foot should do. But if you've got a healthy shoe and you're wearing something that's the foot is going to be doing much more of the work than your foot, then your foot is going to weaken, for example. So really, we want to get that strengthened. However, I see lots of patients with, like I said, rigid kind of calf movement, rigid big toe movement. And if I said to them, go and buy a pair of barefoot shoes to start with, they're going to go, geez, mate, that's even worse, etc. So it's horses for courses. Style is another factor. You go, these are the shoes that would be great for you, and they go, no, they're I'm not wearing them. And sorry, go for it.
I bought a pair of cheap ones online and they're awful. I hate them. I threw them out. I was like, I can't wear those.
Yeah. And we used to wear the 5 fingers kind of ones, and the amount of people that would look at you going, what are you wearing there? But they can't get it. So you've got to work with the patient. Intrinsic foot activation, 100%. I am all for. There are times where patients are not going to do the kind of long-term approach, etc. So you've got to take in different kind of footwear choices.
Yeah, some of the things I've been doing recently, we have had Tim Anderson on the podcast, and he's also been to the gym in person, and he wrote a few books all around original strength, and it's taking the body's movement back to kind of like when you're a baby, and even stuff like rocking and moving and kneeling and crawling and rolling and all that sort of thing. And that big toe, because when I've been doing a few pure movement classes with people recently, and one of the warm-up drills that or kind of one of the kind of beginning drills that they do, and also we did it recently when we did the Strong First Bodyweights, is kind of you get people to, and I've got a bit of a slightly cushioned area upstairs at the gym. I don't know if you've been up there yet, but it's like
Yeah,
got a 20 millimeter kind of tile on it that's a little bit cushioned.
yeah,
So we go barefoot up there, and they walk around the room, on their heels first of all,
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah,
walk
yeah.
around on the ball on the toes, then walk
Fabulous.
around on the outside of the feet,
Yeah, yeah,
walk
yeah,
around on the inside of the feet, then walk around with the toes out and the heels in, then
yeah, yeah.
walk around with the toes in and the heels out. And if you go around the room like half a dozen times, all those variations, it really wakes people's feet up, and they're just not
Does.
used to doing that. And it's, I think, in most commercial kind of corporate type gyms, people, you're not, first of all, they don't let you take your shoes off because they say it's because of insurance, but I don't really
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
No, you're not allowed to take your shoes off. But I encourage everyone to like train bare feet, especially if you're squatting, if you're deadlifting, if you're
yeah,
lunging, and we do get some people who say, oh, well, my feet don't like it because I've got like supports in my shoes. And I'm not going to force people. Okay, that's fine. But I
yeah,
find
yeah.
that 90% of people, they'll take their shoes off, and just even doing their strength training with their shoes off, you've just got that proprioception with the ground, haven't
That's
you?
it.
You've got
It's
that
it's
awareness.
100%
Yeah,
proprioception. You go
yeah.
back to an ankle sprain. Like most of the research now, we're looking to train the proprioceptions, like where's your body in its spatial awareness. Um, and also, you go to get people, you go to walk on their heels, and they can barely do 2 steps because they're so unbalanced. Or you go up onto tiptoes, lateral side. If
Mm.
you're really strong with all core intrinsic muscles, you should be able to. I know that space up there. Easily do that, and it just
Yeah.
makes you aware, like because your feet will move like that. There's times where you got to step out of a puddle and you move onto the outside of your foot, and it's really kind of common how much these different foot types are doing. And if we don't activate them and don't strengthen them, what it can lead to, osteoarthritis of the big toe joint where people are jamming it up to, or it's being jammed by poor movement, etc. That osteoarthritis is now like as debilitating as knee osteoarthritis, hip osteoarthritis,
Mm.
and people aren't aware of, yes, like you can do joint replacements in the big toe, but they're really uncommon at the moment. And foot surgery is about one of the most hit and miss kind of types of procedures you can do because the foot is so complicated. We've got 26 bones in there, and I won't go into too much detail, but how that foot moves in terms of over, I mean, I'm fascinated. But you've got locking mechanisms, unlocking mechanisms, windlass mechanisms. It's really crazy. If you love human engineering, the foot is amazing.
It's fascinating. I love this because it's what like no, but it's like you look at the foot and it's not much of your body, is it? But it does quite a lot, like more than
Yeah,
a
it
lot of
does.
things. Another selfish thing. I've got gout in my right toe.
Okay.
And I don't. I've got no treatment for it or anything like because it's largely okay. But when it
Mhm.
gets warm, sometimes it swells up. But I mean, like joints swell up in the heat and everything like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it does get sore. It doesn't move very well. It's moving well at the moment because I've been doing it while we're talking.
Yeah.
Does it
Oh,
need to
sorry.
be? Like? I mean, it's a general thing, and I've never met you, but like gout's gout, isn't it? But it's Does it need to be treated? Because it tends to be okay. But is that? I mean, like there'll probably be
So
quite a few people listening who've got it as well. So just
yeah, I
interesting.
mean, gout is a crystal arthropathy
Yep.
associated with high purine levels. No one actually kind of really knows why, but 80 to 90% of all gout attacks come into that big toe joint.
Yeah.
Um, what happens is like if you're getting like really kind of high flare ups or increased flare ups, obviously you can take some medication to reduce the uric acid. Um, but the increased depositation of crystals into that joint eventually it's part of the arthritis family, so it's really going to stiffen that joint up over time, and that effect, like I said earlier, it's going to have an effect on the plantar fascia, it's going to have an effect on the Achilles, etc. And I really work on patients to mobilize that big toe joint, get that moving, because once you start unlocking all of that, your body is going to feel so much easier. And just touching back on kind of onto the foot scan aspect we have. So on some of the balance exercises, I can have analyzed the pressure between both limbs, the pressure between your rear foot and forefoot, and even the pressure between forefoot and rear foot of the same foot. Now, what we tend to see is that patients with that blocked up, tight posterior chain, their rear foot pressure is kind of 60-65%. Now, we're looking for a nice 50-50 relationship between rear foot to forefoot. So when your rear foot pressure is 65%, all of your back of your body is tightening up and it's pulling you back into your heels, and then you can't move, etc. And so, simple thing like stretching the big toe can alleviate all that.
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, because I've not been worried about it, and I didn't even know what it was until last year. And I mentioned it to Dan John, and he went, "That sounds like gout." And I was like, "I've had it for years, and I never even thought about it, because it causes me problems, like I say, in the heat." And I did a 100-mile walk a couple of years ago, and it was a bit sore after that. But it's going to be, isn't it? So
yeah.
But otherwise, I'll just keep it mobilized, and it seems to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing with gout, and we often get this, no kind of problems, like, no offense to the GPs, but they'll say, "Oh, you've got gout," and they come in here, and actually what they've got is, we call it functional hallux limiters, or functional hallux limiters, and we're looking for the big toe to kind of bend to about 60-65 degrees range of dorsiflexion. Now, when you have that functional problem, you're only getting about 20-25 degrees, but it's causing pain, swelling in that joint.
Yep.
Now, actually, that is not a crystal arthropathy. That's nothing to do with uric acid or anything like that. That is just tightness into that joint.
Yeah. So is that with you? If you had your foot flat on the ground, then you're using the mind muscle, the musculature to pull that big toe up. You're not physically lifting it. You're trying to lift that big toe itself. Yeah.
We do it in two aspects. So we look at it firstly non-weight bearing. And this is where it can really change. So non-weight bearing, we might find that the toe can get 40-50 degrees. But when you apply ground reaction force to that foot, that joint can really stiffen up then. So actually the force of the way that foot's landing is causing that to lock up. Now, that's when we may intervene and say, look, let's try some stretches, exercises to change. Now, if we can't get that joint to unlock up, then we may add in an orthoses. We might change footwear assessments. But that is a really common thing. People go, "I've got gout." And actually we look at it and go, have you had, like, gout would really knock you off your feet. It's hot, red, swollen. You can't stand even a sheet on it, etc., etc.
I know my brother who has proper gout, and he sometimes says,
"You see, I haven't got proper gout." Is that what you say?
No. What I mean is, but what I mean is, he said, you want someone to chop your foot off. It's that painful. He literally just cut. It's almost unbearable pain. You always just want your foot chopped off. It's that painful.
When I realised this last year, it was because we came to your gym, James, and we'd been to see Paul McElroy in Belfast the week before, and it was a whole weekend sitting in an uncomfortable chair, like a fold-up chair in a gym, listening to lectures and stuff like that. And it was that again. That was when the duvet was hurting it, lying underneath that. But that's because I'd sat down all weekend, and I don't usually do that. And that was the worst it's been for a very long time. But other than that, it's absolutely fine. So that's really good. I've just been doing what you've been saying with my big toes, and the move all right.
Yeah,
so you put my mind at rest.
No, it's good. Yeah, I mean, as long as we can get some good, good range of the dorsiflexion, because essentially, if the big toe doesn't move, how do you get your heel off the ground?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the other thing, actually, that Dave said. We'll wrap up in a second because I know you've got a patient at 2:00. But Dave said as well about the plantar fasciitis, about the stretch, where we normally would look at ankle range of motion by putting the foot on the floor and then trying to just back from the wall and trying to keep the heel down and move the knee forward to touch the wall and see how much range of motion we can get in that dorsiflexion of the ankle. But one thing Dave said was, on the wall, put your big toe, lift your big toe up against the wall, and then do that ankle dorsiflexion, and then that's a really good stretch to kind of to get that big toe.
Because you're activating calf and a bit of plantar fascia a bit more, so it's really good. And I mean, we could have a chat for hours about plantar fasciitis.
Well, what we will do, we will start to wrap up now, because you've got a patient. But like we said, we'll definitely speak again, because now that we've got you, we'll definitely speak again.
Do you know, it's really nice to step out your comfort zones and do something different. And thanks for having me up at the gym, because I absolutely love it up there. Met some really great people, and hopefully kind of with what I can do and maybe Dave and the strengthening that's available and conditioning at your gym, we can really kind of help improve some patients' lives. So
Excellent. No, well, yeah. Well, what we'll do is, and I'll definitely try, because I've not actually met you yet when you've been there, because I'm not usually there on a Wednesday. But
no.
I'll make an effort to come in next time you're there. I'll get Dave to let me know, and I'll come in and
Yeah,
meet you in
brilliant.
person. But no, that's great. If people want to follow you, Jack, on social
Yep.
media to find out a bit more about podiatry and what you do, and obviously if they're anywhere around the Essex area or the southeast of England, they may even be able to come and see you in person. But yeah, what channel are you most active on? Is it Instagram?
Yeah.
Is it YouTube? Is it Facebook? Where do you want people?
So really active on the Facebook and the Instagram. So we are uploading we have a social media guide comes in each month. We do some videos, etc. So all things foot related, that could be complicated gait analysis. It could be trying to stop your feet sweating. So there's a wide range of things you can catch us on. And if anyone is interested, please give us a follow on Essex Podiatry Clinics, or at Essex Podiatry Clinics. And there's some great top tips on there. We try and keep it fun, friendly, and, hopefully people can get some out of it.
Excellent. And yeah, we will definitely have you back on again, because I feel like we've just kind of touched the surface of things. And it is so interesting, because both Pete and I are really into, and that's what this podcast is for, really. It's Health Oddity, but it's trying to get people to maybe just step away from the mainstream a little bit and take personal responsibility for conditions and injuries, and really that prevention, and how we can live more healthily, how we can live more naturally, and how we can prevent a lot of this stuff, by kind of returning a bit more to nature and moving the body the way it was intended to be moved, So brilliant.
Totally agree.
Excellent. I will just say that today it's not the 18th of July. I made a mistake. It's the 25th of July. So it's the 25th of July if you're listening to this on the day of release. Pete's just thrown his hands up, and he's rolled his eyes at me, making a mistake. But it's the 25th of July.
The thing is, people will know what day it is because they'll be listening to it on that.
I know.
You know what I mean? So
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, all of you, for watching, listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, especially, if you know anyone who's affected by, plantar fasciitis, if they've got, arthritis in their toes, if they're having difficulty, share this episode with them. I think it's been really beneficial for them for that. And also, please, if you don't currently, give us a subscribe on YouTube. And if you can, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Leave a review on there. We will be back next week for episode 257 with a runner from Australia.
hopefully.
Named, what's his name, Pete?
Samuel Stowe, hopefully.
Samuel Stowe from Australia, who's an ultra distance runner, I think.
And ironically, it's been hard to pin him down because he's all over the place.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Jack.
Our pleasure. Thanks, guys. And I'll be tuning into the podcast and look forward to maybe coming back on in the future. Absolutely. And catching up with you guys maybe on in the gym or etc. So thank you once again.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack. Thank you, Pete.
You're welcome.
Brilliant. And we will see you next week for episode 257, hopefully with Samuel Stowe from Australia. Samuel Stowe from Australia.
Like Madeline Stowe.
Right, see you later. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.